So some people say start the day with an egg, and what this paper says in sum is really, well, okay, but what we're all about is that you don't necessarily have to start development with one. And in the talk, I'm going to introduce the subject, mainly biology and a tiny amount of history, and then go through a couple of key points of the paper. I'm not going to go through every metric, it's an extremely dense paper. And then right at the very end, a very brief slide about the future. When we think about development, we think about an arrow of developmental time where things get increasingly more specialized. And you can see that in this diagram of the different stages of differentiation at in vitro for pancreatic cells. And it also works at the whole organismal level. So you have, this is the arrow of developmental time pointing in the same direction. These are these diagrams of development of different species, fish on the left column and humans on the right. And the structures within these organisms get increasingly more specialized and complicated. Because the line is between mitotic cells, like skin cells. So most of the cells that are dividing in our bodies are mitotic cells. And this is the first time anyone has been able to take a differentiated cell, like a sperm, and ask a mitotic cell, and in our case it was an embryo, mitotically, because it's exited the meiotic cell cycle. It's now in the regular cell cycle that all of our dividing cells in our body have. And it's the first time anyone has been able to ask a mitotic cell to do this reprogramming. So we've used an embryo as a mitotic cell, and the basis for the comment is that maybe then one day any mitotic cell, like a skin cell, could also do this reprogramming of a sperm or another mitotic cell, so that essentially what you're doing is generating an embryo. And then when you've generated the embryo, then of course, so we're saying it's really blurring this distinction between the gametes and the somatic cells.
So this means you would just, I'm wondering what the scenario is. Does this mean you take, if this were to be true,
yeah,
you take a skin cell, yeah, and then what? Do you just inject sperm into it?
You could do. I mean, it could be that, and I think you'd have to do something with the skin cell first. You'd have to get it to segregate some of the chromosomes so that it become. I think this is just me speculating now. So you'd have to ask it to become a haploid skin cell, which I think there are ways arising that will become possible, but it's not today. And then you would fuse, for example, a sperm cell with that haploid somatic cell derived from your skin, and then that cell will be able to remodel the sperm, which is where now we have a handle on what needs to happen, what's going on in these mitotic embryos that does the remodeling, because we can ask, we've got different genes being expressed, and we can see different chromatin modifications taken, so we can actually really get a handle on delineating what has to happen for the remodeling to happen. So we'd fuse them together, and then we would have a cell. This is speculation. I keep saying this because it's not possible today, and it might not actually be like this. But this is what you're asking. One way it could happen is that what you had when you fused these cells would be like an embryo, and it would start to divide, and it would divide, and it would divide in vitro, and then it could be transplanted either into a surrogate mother, which is the way we have to do it today, or by then, because it would be many years in the future, we may have in vitro womb. So we may be able to do this in vitro. So this is the work that's kind of going on here in the UK and in New York. And so you'd be able to do everything potentially. So that's the kind of the implantation side of it is not. Of course, we're not working on that at all. But that's what you're asking me to kind of imagine. I think how this would fit in. So you gotta do it like that, everything in vitro, or the good kind of, say, good old-fashioned way, but more like the good old-fashioned way of implanting it into a surrogate mother, so that the mother, the female, carries the pregnancy. Does that kind of get to